Six Flags Magic Mountain is home to the most roller coasters in the entire world. 19 wood and steel creations, from kiddie coasters to death defying thrill machines. So, in today's adventure, we'll be counting down the best that Magic Mountain has to offer. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future coaster rankings. And very quickly before we begin, I will only be counting down the rides I have done, so you won't see any of the kiddie coasters like Canyon Blaster, Magic Flyer, Roadrunner Express, and Speedy Gonzales Hot Rod Racers on this list. Now on to the show. Welcome to the Adventure Outpost. Gold Rusher is a mine train coaster by Arrow that opened with the park, and it shows. It's dated, janky, and is little more than a scenic railroad around the top of the mountain. However, it is a good ride to remain at the park for younger kids just starting their coaster conquering. Superman Escape from Krypton was a groundbreaking coaster upon its debut. It was the tallest coaster in the world and one of the first to go over 100 miles per hour. It was also the first to utilize LSMs, or linear synchronous motors. Though that was over 20 years ago, and age has not been kind to this freefall. The backwards launch is a thrill, but it quickly wears off, and the new drop just isn't as exciting with newer, crazier coasters in the park. Also, I don't even think we made it to the top of the tower. Scream is the ugly parking lot cousin of Great Adventure's amazing Bizarro. And it's crazy just how unbearable this coaster is compared to its counterpart, which was built a full 5 years earlier. But here we are. The inversions are still large, and the drop is fun, but the headbanging is rough, and the uninspired theming leave this coaster a one and done. Classic Revolution, or whatever the fuck it's calling itself these days, continues the theme of old roller coasters being the first modern coaster with a vertical loop. I first came across this coaster in the film Vacation, and I couldn't wait to ride it. It's gone over dozens of name changes and facelifts, but it remains a smooth, fun, starting coaster for people looking to jump into inversions. Goliath may just be the worst hypercoaster I've ever ridden, but even the worst hypercoaster is still enjoyable, as I love big drops, and even if this one isn't that steep, I still get a load of enjoyment over that slow crawl at the top of the lift. It builds up anticipation perfectly. The rest of the ride is boring and uninspired, with the exception of the intense ending helix. It's the only Giovanola Hyper I've had a chance to ride, but it's not making me any more excited to get that Titan credit either. Viper is the last remaining Arrow Mega Looper in operation after the destruction of Great American Scream Machine and Shockwave, and it's surprising how much it still holds up today. Granted, it's still rough, and I would never see myself riding more than once a trip, but it's amazing to see how well they keep that ride running, as I've been on some Arrow Loopers that were straight torture racks. So for this one to be so big and still pack a punch is incredible to say the least. The inversions are tight and intense, and the ride fits right at home nestled against the mountain. Its theming is non-existent, but there's still mileage left on this bad boy yet. Ninja is the last of a dying breed, the Arrow suspended coaster, and it's such a shame too, as they are some of my guilty pleasures at parks, and Ninja is no different, with a fast-paced layout that whips you around the mountain, intersecting with terrain and rides. The swinging is such a unique experience, and I hope that one day we can see a modern utilization of the concept. But for now, we'll have to settle with these little pieces of history. Full Throttle is a steel launch coaster from Premier Rides that has a nice fun launch, one of the best hang times on a loop I've experienced, and a surprising Aussie track. But that's about it. It's insanely short, and the finale of the ride leaves much to be desired with a heavily trimmed drop off the top of the loop. Major bummage. And now it can't even tout being the world's tallest vertical loop anymore either, being surpassed by Flash at Lua Adventure in China. Apocalypse is a rip-roaring GCI that twists and turns in and around itself in one demented ride. Originally operating as Terminator Salvation, it wasn't long before that name soured, thanks in part to its terrible namesake, and it was changed to Apocalypse. I love GCI coasters, as they have perfectly executed tight banking turns and balls to the walls mayhem. And even if this ride did do a number on my back, I put it down to more of a restraint issue than any underlying problem with the ride. That flyby and twisted first drop make this one crazy ride through the apocalypse. The Riddler's Revenge is an anomaly to me. I despise stand up coasters, and yet Riddler's Revenge stands as one of the best coasters on the property. How can this be? The answer? The layout. This is one of the best B&M layouts ever brought to creation, with huge inversions, sweeping turns, and a track that contorts around itself in the second half. It's better than any stand-up has any right being, and if even one other stand-up was half as good as this coaster, I'd be a fan. Sadly, such is not the case, and Riddler's Revenge will forever be an anomaly. Batman the Ride at Magic Mountain was the third of these clones to hit the States, and I've only ever ridden this and Great Adventures, so I can't speak for the other clones, but the third time felt like the charm, as this coaster is whippy, intense, and forceful as shit. I love this compact model. The second half of this ride is just crazy intense, flipping through those corkscrews. The theming is also way nicer than Great Adventures, even with that dumbass entrance sign. And I like the dark blue aesthetic of the track more than the bright yellow. Fits a lot more with the dark grittiness of Batman than the goofy Batman of the 60s. West Coast Racers is the new for 2020 dueling racing coaster by Premier Rides, and it is loads of fun. This Mobius loop sees you hitting speeds of 55 miles per hour over 2 launches and hitting 4 inversions. The high five element is a lot of fun, as is the helix, and pretty much the entire ride. It's just an enjoyable experience. It's not too intense, and it's not too tame. It hits that sweet spot perfectly, and I had a lot of fun on this ride. The theming is really good too for a Six Flags park, and it made me appreciate the ride a whole lot more. X2 will always be the most intense coaster I've been on. First riding it when I was 15, I had no idea what to expect and found myself gripping the restraint the whole ride, something I never do. Fast forward to 2020 and I finally got the chance to ride it again, and as soon as we hit that lift hill, all that intensity came back to me and I once again found myself holding on for dear life. This ride is not for the faint at heart. This is sheer thrill and intensity from start to finish. One of the craziest coasters I will ever ride, and even if it bankrupt Arrow, I'm still so happy something like this exists. The ultimate thrill designed to bring you to the edge of your comfort, where safety and thrill blur into one twisted mesh of steel. Sheer lunacy. And I need to get out to Japan to ride Ijanika and China for Dinoconda. Tatsu is nestled deep up the mountain, lording dominion over any brave enough to test its mettle. This insane B&M flyer joins X2 as one of the scariest coasters I've ridden. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this coaster, as you can see from its second place ranking, and that's thanks to its scare factor. My favorite rides are the ones that manage to elicit that fear in me, that bring me back to being a little kid nervous to tackle these rides. It's an amazing feeling, and Tatsu has it in spades. The lift hill is panic inducing, and anyone with vertigo should run far, far away. The rest of the ride is insane overbank turns and zero G rolls that give great views of the park, and that pretzel loop is one of the most intense elements on any ride that I've ever experienced. Could feel it in my teeth, it was that crazy. It's a must do for any enthusiast and one of the best coasters in the States. Now just give me something like Flying Dinosaur and I'll be set. Twisted Colossus was my most anticipated ride going to California, and it didn't disappoint. The Mobius Loop adds a unique look to RMC's repertoire, and the ride is balls to the wall with crazy transitions, amazing airtime, and that incredible stall. It does feel a tad start and stop, as the second lift hill can really kill the momentum you felt, but that's a small nitpick in an otherwise amazing ride. It's definitely up there with the best of the best from RMC, and having ridden the original Colossus, it's amazing to see what they've done with her. Taking a ride that was on its last lease on life and turning it into the must-do attraction at the park. And for a park with almost 20 coasters, that's one hell of an accomplishment. And that's our show. Six Flags Magic Mountain is an insane park with crazy coaster after crazy coaster, and they have more than lived up to the moniker of world's most extreme park. Tune in next week where we will rank my top 5 most hated rides. Guys, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more coaster rankings in the future. Drop a comment. I want to know your rankings for this epic park. And from all of us here at the Outpost, take care, be safe, and adventure on.